Minister in the presidency, Jackson Mthembu, passed away yesterday, on Thursday. May his soul rest in peace. Long live Comrade Jackson Mthembu. Welcome to episode 7 of the PR Coach. And thank you very much for your patronage. Thank you very much for so many of you who watched the last episode and who keep on subscribing and spreading the news. Now, for the rest of yesterday, after the announcement of Jackson Mthembu's death, for the entire day today, for the entire weekend, most certainly, and most likely for most part of next week, he will be news. Why? He is Jackson Mthembu. It is one of the criteria of news. He's a prominent person. He's got a long history in the struggle, but also he's a cabinet minister. And he was the face for some time before he got ill of communication of COVID, when the NCCC had to communicate to us. He was the person facilitating communication between the NCCC and cabinet as well, and with us, the public. So he is Jackson Mthembu. Now, why am I telling you this? We all love publicity. We all want to go and tell the world about the fact that our organization is doing well. Our CEO is going overseas for this or the other award. Our organization has just appointed this great human being. These amazing results that have come through. Our football team is starting to win football matches. This, that, and the other. That's what PR is about. We want to make the news and publicize the things we do. So what happens most often with public relations officers, or whatever they call themselves, communications practitioners? I've lost the kind of terms that we use for what people do. I just want to call them communicators. They send information, communication to the media in the form of media statements, in the form of clips, in the form of leaks sometimes. So they would have done that yesterday. There would have been stories. There would have even been stories that were not leaked to the media that happened. Like example, yesterday, the Reserve Bank was announcing its decision on reviewing repo rates. Now that's a big story. On any given day, nobody misses that story because it impacts on my pocket and yours, whether we like it or not. But when a cabinet minister dies, who is also prominent, but also popular, whatever his past, some things get shifted away. I can tell you now that the announcement by Governor Khanyago, forgive me for missing his first name, his announcement on interest rates would have been news all day, all of yesterday. But it dropped probably to story number 2 if nothing else happened. And that's how it works. News is a space of competition. What is latest, what is most shocking, what is most exciting, what is bigger, what is relevant, all those things matter. Now, when communicators send stuff to the media, and they have a conversation, maybe the reporter picks up the phone, they get more information, they get clarification here and there, and then they put down the phone and the communicator knows they have sold the story. Journalist X is excited and they like the story. They've done a follow-up. They've interviewed my CEO. They've interviewed our financial director. They've interviewed our player, our coach, whoever it is. Therefore, we know they're doing the story. And sometimes the journalist says, I've done the story, it's gone through my bosses in the news terms. It would have gone through the news desk, which is where the decisions happen. Whether it's a good story or not, it gets passed on. And when it gets passed on from the news desk, the journalist knows they've done a good story. It's now going into the production process. If you've got a good relationship with them as a communicator, the journalist would call you and say the story has gone through. And then you wake up today. The story is not in the paper. And it was a big story, wasn't it? It was a huge story. Your organization just made this amazing donation to change lives of the poor, or whatever it is. You've just done something else, or there's even an announcement about a huge cash heist, and the police have managed to thwart it. But the story is not in the paper. The story is not on television news. It's not in the radio. And you're thinking, but my journalist partner has now failed me. I promised my CEO, I promised my church minister, my coach, my bosses, the board, that we're going to be in the news. And now we're not there. That's how it works. Your story fell off because something else came up. It is how it works. It is nothing personal. When they looked at the stories they had, they said, which ones could we relegate? So sometimes it is your story that gets relegated to the rubbish bin. And the problem with it is that because it was news, it is no longer newsworthy tomorrow. So they can't do it tomorrow. It was news yesterday. If it was a story that was relevant for the day, it's no longer relevant tomorrow. And that's how it works. It is how it works. If you're lucky, sometimes they do a brief about your story, so that at least there's some mention if they thought it was strong enough, but unfortunately they don't have space anymore. They drop it and they do a brief. It is how it works. It is nothing personal. So I have always advised communicators never to believe a journalist that tells them their story is going to be in the news. Because most journalists don't have final control of what gets published or broadcast. They don't. There are people above them who take those decisions. And some of these decisions are taken long after the journalist has gone home. I used to be a sub-editor at the Sowetan. And I used to see journalists leave and they greet us when they go home. They've submitted their stories. They know things are happening. And right at night, as we conclude in the newspaper, something else happens. Or somebody questions the story, among the bosses, and the story gets dropped. The journalist does not get called to be told your story is no longer in the paper. It's not a democracy. It's a business. They drop the story, something else comes up, or some facts came up that question the legitimacy of that story. No time to ask the journalist. If it's too big, they may call you to say, look, something else came up. Can you solve us, this conundrum? We're not sure about what you wrote here, or stuff like that. But generally, they take the decision there and then. So your story gets dropped, your bosses get disappointed, you get unhappy with the journalist who promised you that the story is in the news. Fact is, you should not have that expectation. You should only function on hope. And I always say that when your story is strong enough, it's got a better chance of survival. Which means we should also, as communicators, really desist from sending weak stories to the media. We should desist from sending stories that are inward looking, like stories about our own things that are happening internally. Use your own newsletter. If it's got no impact and consequence on the consumer of that medium, do not waste your time. You are creating expectations that will only come back to bite you and nobody else. But most importantly, take it with a pinch of salt when a journalist says we're going to be in the paper or in the news this evening or tomorrow. Worse still when they say we are front page news. No. Minister Jackson Mthembu dies. They cannot keep you on the front page news when the minister dies. When Pope John Paul dies on a Saturday evening and you think you made the front page of the Sunday Times, well, it's going to be Pope John Paul II on the front page. That's how it works. So this is a lesson for people in communication, but also to you, bosses of communicators. Stop putting pressure on people to guarantee you that they're going to be in the news. There's only one guarantee to be in the media. Buy the space. If you buy advertising, you're going to get that space. But if you depend on public relations, you then have to just keep your fingers crossed. But I promise you, if you produce good content that is relevant to the medium you're speaking to, content that is consequence and impact that the consumer will feel, but also content that is artistically produced, you've got a much better chance to make it even when a cabinet minister passes on. You may be shifted from page 1 lead to page 3 lead, which is equally great. Even page 5 lead. You have not lost much. You still got your story in. But if your story was already weak, chances are you're going down to the rubbish bin forever until the new story comes. That's a free lesson for this week on the PR Coach. Please continue to subscribe to our page. Please let more people know about our page. If you've got any queries, any comments, and indeed, if you want to do business with the PR Coach, please write to us. And you know what I've decided? Write to me, actually. rams@kingmaker.co.za. Write to me. rams@kingmaker.co.za. Let's talk. But I'd like to hear your comments. I'd like to hear what you think. But I can promise you one thing. A lot of editors are going to love this because I've just defended what they do every day. Thank you very much for watching. Until next time.